The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Before we get back to the manhunt and the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination, just a quick text following up on our conversation at the top of the hour. Relative to your conversation now, as my son says, how do you begin to have a constructive conversation with someone who can't even agree that there are only two sexes? And what I would say is, on that issue or any other where there's disagreement, is probe their understanding of the position they've taken. For example, do you believe that a girl is the same thing as a boy who thinks he's a girl? Most people take positions they don't know how to explain, much less defend. So get them talking. Charlie did that on college campuses. Get them talking and watch them in so many instances. Not all the time. You have to have someone who actually is interested in dialogue and thinks that they know what they think. But if they don't know how to explain their position, much less defend it, and you do, you know both sides of the argument, you're likely to get them to walk themselves into an intellectual dead end. And that's when the light goes on. Or at least, as Dennis Prager would say, they might think a second time. And that's how you move people. You know, people move around in terms of their understandings and beliefs and political choices all the time. All the time. How many people who voted for Obama in 8 and 12 voted for Trump in 16 and since? Just for example. The examples are innumerable. So that's what I would say to that. The demoralization, of course, is what the forces of illiberalism, demoralization of the rational and the civic-minded is what they want. Demoralization is how you lose your society. It's how center-right people lost Illinois. Demoralized, throw your hands up. Okay, well, the other side is happy to run the table and run the show as long as you let them. For consideration. All right, turning to the investigation, as we mentioned at the top of the show, after that FBI briefing yesterday morning, towards the end of our show, we found out some more because the FBI has found out some more. We believe they have the assassin's bolt-action rifle. They have released pictures of a person of interest they clearly believe to be the assassin. They have, they have an idea of his, from video and eyewitness testimony of what the escape path was, where he was, and so the hunt is on. They also have this, or we also have this. I don't think this has been authenticated by law enforcement, but it seems authentic, and multiple media outlets have reported on it. Some sort of whitewashing it more than others, as you can imagine. But one of the things from this alleged ATF report that was leaked in discussing the Mauser 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near campus that FBI found. They add, the location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route of travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds of the top-fed magazine. And then this. All cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. We had Jim Fitzgerald on the show at the end of the show yesterday, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show today, and he, interestingly, the famed criminal profiler he is, said would not be surprised to learn that this was trans-adjacent, inspired, would not be surprised to find that the assassin has a manifesto or something of that sort, has writings or political observations that explain the motivation. And it seems to be going in that direction. For more on where it is and where it's going and what we should anticipate, pleased to be joined by Eric O'Neill, former FBI agent in counterterrorism and counterintelligence. Eric O'Neill, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, it's good to be on the show.
So, give us your review of what we learned from the FBI yesterday and how you think this case is coming together, this investigation is coming together.
Certainly. Well, if we were talking yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon, I would have said that the FBI would have caught this guy by last night. I woke up surprised that they haven't, which concerns me. That suggests that this single individual who was able to make a pretty long-range shot, it was about 200 meters, which is a long shot for someone who hasn't shot before. So that suggests that he has at least some training in firearms. It suggests to me that, maybe he had some help in getting away because this is an extraordinary manhunt with the FBI, local police, the marshals are now involved. ATF has been assisting. That's a lot of LEO or law enforcement officers on the ground trying to capture this single shooter. So I'm hoping they get him soon.
One of the yeah, sure, we all are. One of the things that was also reported is that the number of tips the FBI has received is an all-time high. Unsurprisingly, I guess, with all of the attention associated with this. But I wonder, does that slow down the investigation as trying to discern credible tips from tips that are not credible and running all these traps in all these different directions?
It can. Now, remember, the comparable is probably the Boston Marathon bombing. That was the second most number of tips. This is eclipsed that. I think I saw one report that there were 7,000 some tips that came in, and of course that's a lot of work for personnel, law enforcement personnel, to go through the tips to try to find out what is actionable intelligence versus what is, someone saw somebody wearing black walking down the street.
Yeah. Right.
And remember, those tips might also be video, and they have to go through the video. It's, in the old days, you would call and say, I think I saw somebody near this convenience store, right? But today it's Ring cameras, it's home security cameras, it's cell phone images, and a lot of that gets sent in and has to be sifted through. The neat thing about today is AI can help law enforcement, and there are databases that allow them to quickly go through a lot of that data. But still, that is an enormous number of tips from a well-meaning population who really wants this shooter caught.
Yeah, I was talking to Jim Gagliano, who was former FBI, yesterday, and he was also talking about the physical topography on that college campus and around that college campus. The open parking lot behind the building where he could have escaped, a major expressway not far, and so he could have been miles away relatively quickly while everybody was still in a chaotic situation. And I just wonder, so how does the FBI try to put a timeline and a perimeter around where they're searching in order to really zero in on places that he is most likely within the vicinity of at any given the distance and time from the actual assassination?
Well, the first thing that they need to do is what they would have done is close down or monitor the major points of travel. So they're going to lock down airports, bus stations, anywhere that he could get on some sort of public transportation and move quickly. They're going to widen a search cordon, so a wide perimeter where they think that based on time, if he was in a car, he could drive, and try to monitor any cars that are leaving on major highways. It's complicated. Now, the one thing they do know from the wealth of information that's been recovered, most of it on video from the campus, is the direction he left. And I suspect that law enforcement took a gamble that he was still in the neighborhood surrounding the school. And it appears that was not true, or at least they haven't found him. One of two things has happened here, Dan. Either he's gone to ground and he's hiding really well,
Yeah.
or he got in a car, or someone picked him up and he's on the road somewhere. But either way, I think they find him. It's just a matter of time.
Well, I would tend to believe that as well. But I mean, do we? There wasn't any indication. Maybe I missed it that they have a car identified. Do they?
No. But I'm just looking at the shooter and the way that he executed this shooting. It was it clearly shows a wealth of planning.
Yeah.
He used a very overpowered gun for this shot. That 30-06 is a cannon. It can cause an immense amount of damage. So he certainly wanted to make sure that one shot he had with that bolt-action rifle, he wasn't going to get another one before Charlie Kirk's close protection pulled him out of harm's way, would do the job. He didn't even rack his bolt. He immediately left the roof. He had his exit point mapped out. He knew where he was going to go. And there even very recently a new security camera footage from a neighborhood house is showing him at about 9:50 in the morning on the way to the campus limping, which suggests that it's possible he had that long gun shoved down his pants leg, which is the only way I could see him getting that Mauser bolt-action rifle into the college campus. So, if he had all of this planning in place to take the shot, that suggests that he would have planned his exfiltration. He would have planned his escape from the shooting just as carefully.
It's just, it's a little surprising, and I don't pretend to know the landscape there in Utah and around that college, but it's just surprising that you've got, everybody chaotically scrambling, and you see a lot of video of it, and then one guy climbing down off the roof, which we see some video of, and then escaping, and that you don't pick up whether it was a motorized bike or a car, somewhere some traffic camera doesn't pick up a number of cars that could narrow the search, and you could go car by car if you can identify the plates and figure out whose they were and really zero in on his means of escape.
Right. Well, we don't know everything that law enforcement has. They release bits of it as they think the public has a need, but they're not going to release everything. I would bet they have better pictures of him. They have additional video that hasn't been released, and I just the way that I see this is they thought they would have him a lot faster than they did, and now there's this larger appeal to the population to send in tips. So they're inviting this because they need that help.
Your background in counterterrorism and counterintel, are we going to see law enforcement after this case is resolved have a internal or external or a combination of the two conversation about what sorts of security should be at what sorts of venues for particular speakers in these days and times? Like I understand the FBI doesn't have the resources to cover every conservative speaker or controversial speaker, but I mean, just in terms of best practices that you have sort of federal, state, local, campus having conferences and communications about best practices to implement?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one that has been coming up a lot recently. I think the location that Charlie Kirk picked is an incredibly difficult one to defend against a shooter. If you want to draw a comparison, you can to Trump's ill-fated,
Butler.
Speaking engagement in Butler, right, where that was a difficult place for even Secret Service and Homeland Security to defend against a shooter. Now, we could get into that. There's no reason that shooter was on that roof, but a college campus security and local law enforcement don't have the resources to have counter snipers, to have a law enforcement asset on every rooftop where a shooter could be. And that was a risk that Charlie Kirk, and I think knowingly, having seen some of his interviews in the past about this, said that he accepted the risk of being in an open environment like that. I think in the future for someone of that caliber, politically, particularly one that's a political firebrand, we'll probably see a change in venue. For example, if you go inside, which I know Charlie Kirk did not want to do, it's a lot easier to secure an internal auditorium. You have, certain points of entry and exit that law enforcement or security can protect. Or a stadium. Stadiums tend to be more secure because they have doors to get in. Many of them have metal detectors. A college campus stadium that you can secure the same way would have given him that open air ability to, sit in a courtyard-like environment, but still allow security to provide a lot more protection. So maybe the solution is to do what all of the big performers and rock stars do and use the college stadiums rather than courtyards.
Eric O'Neill, former FBI counterterrorism and counterintel agent. Eric, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Chicago businesses. Your phone, internet, and IT should work well 24/7. But when it doesn't, who are you calling? At Overseas Help Desk? If you want clear, reliable local experts, consider Access One. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One has you covered. Access One is Chicago-owned, Chicago-run, and serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore and everywhere in between. We're rated top 5